What distinguishes good and evil?
I think that good and evil isn't, I think it's about what your intentions are. Because I know, like, in our story, the monster could be portrayed as evil, but if you look at his, like, motives and why he was acting the way he was, it could also be looked at as in a childish fashion. Like, I mean, he's basically only 2 years old, and he's just a grown man in a 2-year-old mindset. So him throwing a fit and killing somebody, I mean, if a 2-year-old was an 8-foot monster, it could probably kill somebody too. I mean, it's not evil just because it doesn't know how to control its emotions. So
I think good is the positive things that we see, and evil would be the negative things we see. So I think no one necessarily is good or evil. Everybody has both components in them.
I agree with Harrison when he said it's all about the intentions, because if you think about an evil person, it's basically them just trying to sabotage the good person's intentions.
Well, and like when we see evil things in the world, we base that more off like how we feel about it versus like a rational idea of what good and evil is. Like instead of like defining it and like saying that it fits in that box, we just kind of say like that feels wrong to us. So like, yeah, if he doesn't know any better, his like morals and ideas will be like what he's learned from people, and he hasn't really had anyone to learn from, so he'll just do whatever.
In the beginning of the book, when like Victor created the monster for good intentions, and then the monster like turned out to be evil.
but did the monster actually turn out to be evil?
Is someone really
like
good
you
or
said,
evil?
like I think he had good intentions. He just didn't know how to act. He didn't know how to act.
Are we born evil? Or is that
Something that we
We're
learn.
born how we're raised. And he didn't have anyone to raise him, so he just kind of went on instinct, I guess.
Well, and most people don't like think of themselves as evil. Like they kind of view themselves as like the protagonist of their own lives. So like Frankenstein might have viewed the monster as evil, but the monster just didn't know what he was doing, and he thought he had good intentions. So
Because the monster could have viewed Victor as evil for making him, because the monster was so miserable. So I think it's all about your point of view and what intentions the person has. So I don't think you can define whether or not someone's good or evil unless you know their angle of the situation that they're in. So that's really hard to define.
I agree. It depends on perspective.
Yeah.
Because you could be a really good person, do a few bad things, or be a really bad person, do a few good things. Like, just because you do one good thing doesn't make you a good person.
And just because you do one bad thing doesn't make you a bad person.
Okay, next question.
What if the friendship is a deconstructive relationship?
In our story, is it actually a friendship? Like I wouldn't consider
think it
what they
is.
have a friendship in the first place. I would consider it a relationship.
Like
but
a very unhealthy father-son.
yeah, and it's almost to the point where
It's almost non-existent.
yeah, it's almost not a relationship. Like he just made him, and he wants nothing to do with it. And the monster hates him for creating him, so it's almost like a hate. I don't care relationship. It's
Yeah.
not a love-hate or a hate-hate.
Like a dad
It's
that
just
just walks out as soon as he's born.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely not a constructive relationship. It's destructive if there even is a relationship there. Even is a relationship there.
Next one. As creations, how are we interdependent with our Creator?
I took this question, like thinking of myself and my Creator. From a religious point of view, I'd say God, you know. And we depend on Him and He depends on us for life.
When I looked at this question, I took it as in an art sort of point of view. Like I make paintings and like I draw pictures and I hate most of them. And I throw them a lot away. And so like I know that obviously a drawing or a picture isn't like an actual, it's an inanimate object, but I just feel like I don't know. I don't feel guilty for throwing things away, even if somebody else says, "Hey, that's really good." If I don't like it, I'm not gonna like flaunt it and be proud of it. So then I kind of looked at that in a different way as far as Victor and the monster. Like, he created something he didn't like, and then he just left it. Like, he probably should have taken care of it and done something. He should have done things differently, but I don't blame him for not.
Or at
I don't
least
know,
the
trying to-
creation
at least
also-
killed him so he didn't have to be so miserable. Done something.
Yeah, like
throw
he
yours
could
away.
have destroyed it and like been done with it right there because I made a mistake. I didn't like that. It ended up being bad when I tried to make something good. So you need to destroy it instead of just leaving it
Letting
be.
it go.
I looked
Yeah.
at this as like a parent and a child. So I mean, he was living. He wasn't a piece of artwork. Our parents can't look at us and say, "Oh, I'm just going to destroy you because I don't like you." So I don't know if I agree that he should have destroyed him. He should have stayed with him. And I mean, as babies, we're taught how to live. We're taught everything from the day of birth. And so I think Victor should have stayed with him and taught him and accepted what he had created.
I agree, because like he actually had feelings and like he was alive, so like destroying him isn't really the same as just throwing something away that you don't like. But like there's like a constant link between the creator and the creation. Like I thought of it as a parent and a child too, and like your parents can like disown you, or like you can not get along with your parents, but you still always have that link, and like you can't really get rid of your family connections. So like your creator.
I understand where you're coming from with that, but at the same time, you have to look at it in the perspective of Victor. He didn't make a child. He made a monster. Like, there's a difference between a child, like a baby, where like, oh my gosh, I made this baby with like my own body parts. Like, this was my creation. Whether or not I found a bunch of parts and I put it together, this is a monster. Like, you have
Either
to,
way, he still made something that was living, and he has to take responsibility for that and own up to that. And you can't give something life and then just kill it. Like, that's wrong in my eyes. That's wrong.
Because he had basically
But-
like the life of a child. Like he didn't know anything, and he had to like learn everything on his own. So like, I mean, how do you define like monster? Because he really didn't have anything like evil to begin with. So
What is that like in what Lainey's saying in real life today? Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm pro-abortion. I'm just saying that I feel like there's different circumstances that come into play between an actual baby that he had with another woman and something that he threw together with old body parts. Like,
But still, it could have
One's-
came out as a better person had he stayed
Yeah,
there.
it was just
no, and I completely understand that, but I feel like if it was something he didn't like that he made out of, I don't know.
Okay, for time purposes,
Well, like,
we
yeah.
should probably move on.
Yeah, go to the next question.
When does responsibility become a problem?
It becomes a problem when people don't own up to their own responsibility, and
I said it becomes a problem when you're not prepared or ready. Like, say you're too young or something.
yeah.
Or when one person has too much, it becomes
Yeah.
stressful.
like if someone has the ability to do something but they're not prepared to handle the results, like should they really have that responsibility?
Or when, did you say that it has too much?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with David. If somebody has a responsibility and there's just one, there's no excuse not to take care of it. But when you have 1,000 things that you have to do, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Because how do you prioritize and say this one's more important than that one? When to somebody else it could be.
And I think
Different.
Victor was a prime example of that. He had too many responsibilities with the monster, and he went crazy.
Because he had to think about the monster, and then he had to think about people dying at his expense, and then he had to think about marrying the lady, I can't remember, Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, yeah.
And then he just had too many things to worry about that it was just too much.
Okay. Good job. Good discussion. We'll review tomorrow and then